So today I'm going to be telling you all you need to know about this, the Vauxhall Astra Electric. No, you're right, it is not a brand new model, but instead it's an all-new pure electric drivetrain from Vauxhall's recently refreshed 5-door hatch. You see, everyone is getting electrified. We told you it wasn't just a fad. So do make sure you follow everything on electrifying.com, because we can bring you everything you need to know about the world of electric cars. And I promise you, we are not as scary as we look. Well, I'm not. I can't really speak for the rest of them, to be honest. So what have we got here? Well, you might recognise this Astra hatch, mainly because this new version was actually released as a car with a petrol, diesel and hybrid engine as an option in 2022. But this time we're looking at the fully electric version. So what are we talking about here? It has a 50.8 kilowatt hour battery under the floor with a possible 258 mile WLTP range. Very respectable indeed. Now, this is part of Vauxhall's plans to become an all-electrified brand by 2028. So that is 7 years ahead of the UK government's cut-off point of 2035. So they are going to be well ahead of the schedule.
It's based on the same bits as the new Peugeot E308 that's coming soon, and from the specs, it's quite obviously aiming directly at more established cars like the VW ID3, Cupra Born, MG4 and Peugeot E2008, or even the Kia Niro EV and the more SUV style crowd. And from the outside, it looks no different to the Astras that have engines, apart from the fact that there's no exhaust pipe, for obvious reasons.
So there is the much more modern Vauxhall visor here at the front, which actually quite handily disguises all of the sensors for the driver assistance systems. And do you know what? I think the face of the car looks really good. Now, there are optional IntelliLux LED headlights. They have a bonkers 84 LED elements in each side, and then of course you've got the grills. Not that it actually really needs them, because there's no actual engine in there. But it looks good, it's all part of the package, right? Now, one thing I do really like is that it doesn't shout about being an electric car. I think quite a few people like to fly under the radar when they're saving the environment.
From launch, there are two-tone paint options, and the all-electric versions get 18-inch alloys as standard, and they can be had in a black finish if you prefer. And like I said, at the back, the only difference to the models we've already seen is the lack of a tailpipe. It's clean. It has a nice modern design that looks pretty good.
And you know what? The same can be said for the inside. Now, we've seen quite a lot of this stuff already, but let me remind you, you get two 10-inch displays that make up Vauxhall's pure panel display. Physical buttons for things like aircon, the usual stuff. There's also a heads-up display on the more expensive versions. There's voice recognition, loads of driver assistance systems as well. There's also an app to control charging and preconditioning the car. Very useful on the very hot and the freezing cold days that we're experiencing at the moment. You can have heated seats, a heated steering wheel, even a heated windscreen. Now, I am super excited about that, because I can finally say goodbye to the day where I'm fumbling around in my handbag for a credit card to de-ice my car in a rush. There's also wireless charging, front and back parking sensors, voice-activated sat-nav. The list goes on. You get it. It's really quite well equipped, especially in the Ultimate grade, which is handily called Ultimate. And then, of course, you've got the usual driving modes, access from the button down here. So it's actually the same as the other Astras. You get Sport, Normal and Eco.
There are also super comfy seats, which have been certified by the German Campaign for Healthier Backs, no less. What an achievement. And overall, it feels like decent, if not jaw-dropping quality in space. It's good in the back, but not quite as good as cars designed from the outset to be purely electric. But the fact that it matches other Astras makes sense. The battery for the electric Astra actually fits into the spaces that are already there, so it's got exactly the same interior space as the plug-in hybrid version. The boot on the hatch isn't massive at 352 litres, but there's a twist here. You'll also be able to get the Astra as a sports tourer estate.
560 litres of space with the seats up and 1,553 with the seats folded. Not only bigger than the hatchback sibling, but actually noticeably a touch bigger than the MG5 as well. And do you know what? It looks pretty good. So hang on. It's practical and it's stylish. That sounds like my sort of thing.
As for the hardware, as I mentioned, we're looking at a 54 kilowatt hour battery with 50.8 kilowatts of usable power, which should give a WLTP range of 258 miles. And that compares really well with the competition. It's the same battery as the Jeep Avenger, which we quite liked, and you can read about that over at electrifying.com. There is one motor that drives the front wheels, as you might expect, and in this version it gets 154 brake horsepower and just under 200 pounds per foot of torque, which, if those numbers mean very little to you, is enough, but it's not enough to scare you. Expect 0 to 62 mile per hour times of 9.3 seconds, which honestly is actually quite sedate, particularly for an electric car.
Now, as for charging, all Astras get 100 kilowatt DC charging, which on a big enough charger should see 10 to 80% in just over half an hour, which is pretty good going. But if you have just a normal home charger, then it's going to take about 8 hours. To be honest, 11 kilowatt AC ability is a nice to have, but if you're mainly charging overnight from home, then actually the standard wall box is plenty. It's not going to make that much difference. Do not worry, if these numbers mean absolutely nothing to you, panic not. It basically means it's kind of middle of the range. There's nothing stand out, but there's also nothing to worry about when it comes to charging. And I think with that in mind, I wish there were just a few more things to get excited about. For example, there's no vehicle to load charging. The warranty is only 3 years and 60,000 miles on the car and 8 years and 100,000 miles on the battery. Which is fine. It's kind of average, but it just makes me think, come on Vauxhall, give us something to get excited about, give us something to shout about. One thing worth mentioning though, you get an Octopus Energy Electroverse card with every new electric Vauxhall. Now that gives you cheaper access to lots of different chargers, and I think that's a really nice touch. All right, time for my conclusion. Now the Astra Electric. It looks like a solid effort, right, from Vauxhall, and we got to say congrats to them for that. It's not game-changing, but all the bits are in all the right places. It's a good-looking car. I think the real tempting one actually has to be the Sports Tourer. It looks a bit better and it offers that extra dose of practicality without being yet another SUV-style tall car that we're seeing loads of at the moment. The only problem with the Astra Electric and also the Sports Tourer is the price. Now, it's quite pricey. The GS grade lists at £5 under £40,000, with the better equipped Ultimate at just under 43 grand. That's quite punchy for a car that is still badged as an Astra. Now think about it in comparison, a Renault Megane E-Tech Electric, that's going to come in between 41, 42 grand. You've got the long range MG4 Trophy, a lot less, coming in at 32 and a half. So this electric Astra needs to be really quite special to warrant that kind of cash. So the question is it worth it? Well, I don't know, because we haven't driven it yet, have we? I think the proof will be in the pudding when we take it for a test drive. But so far, things are looking good.
And if you do want to know when we drive the new Astra Electric, then please do like and subscribe, and go on, click that button that turns on your notifications, because then you'll be the first to know about it. And don't forget to let us know what you think in the comments. Is the Astra spot on, or did it need to have a bit more surprise and delight? And also, what do you think to that price? Let us know.